All right, this is my baptism story, how I came to know about the church and how I ended up being baptized. I was born in 1954 in Annapolis, Maryland, and my parents were Methodist and Baptist, I believe. They said my mom, I think, was Methodist, my dad was Baptist. And the first church I remember going to was after we moved to Austin, Texas in 1957. Down the street from us. I believe it was a Methodist church, not sure, but it was Protestant of some sort. And then when we moved to Santa Cruz, California in 1959, uh, we attended the Congregationalist Church up the hill from us in Santa Cruz, where my dad was the moderator, kind of equivalent to the Elders Quorum president, I guess, without the keys, but the administrator for the men's group. So they were pretty active in church, and I remember doing a lot of things, vacation Bible school and stuff like that, going to Sunday school on Sundays and enjoying the donuts and stuff afterward. It was pretty fun, nice people, nice kids. Um, my dad worked for Pacific Cement and Aggregates out in Davenport at the cement plant, and a lot of the employees there were apparently Latter-day Saints. And so when it was time for me to join Cub Scouts in 1962, I ended up in a Latter-day Saint Cub Pack. And the den was just down the street at the Driscolls. And our pack meetings were out at the Ward building out near Aptos. Um, then I didn't think too much of it. The kids seemed pretty normal, but that was my first exposure really to the church. Apparently, my parents took the missionary discussions at one point. I didn't find out about this until after I was baptized, but they decided not to join the church. But nonetheless, we had a lot of Latter-day Saint friends as well as Congregationalist friends. We moved up near San Francisco to Tiburon, California in 1964. And there we attended the Presbyterian church down the street from our apartment building. And I was an acolyte, which is the kid who comes up to the front of the services, like the sacrament meeting, and lights the candles and then puts them out at the end of the meeting. And I remember enjoying that. I don't remember much about the doctrine or attending Sunday school after the meetings. So I don't really know much about the doctrine other than what I've read later. We went to church. We stopped going to church when I was about in eighth grade. Um, but in high school, later on, I hung out with an evangelical group. My girlfriend at the time hung out with them, kind of kind of free spirits, learning about Jesus. And I remember they would go witnessing out on the street corners. And I never did that with them, but I'd go to the evening meetings sometimes and do that. I had some Latter-day Saint friends as well at high school. Seemed like nice kids, but I didn't really know much about them. When I got to college, I went off to college in 1972 after I graduated from high school. And there, one of my fraternity brothers was in Campus Crusade for Christ. And so I went to some of those meetings with him, but I never really did get very involved. But, I was searching for Christ and for the true church, I guess. I was interested at least, which was more than a lot of my fraternity brothers. I had one fraternity brother who was a Latter-day Saint, and I believe he served a mission, but I'm not positive. But I never went to church with him or anything, and he never talked about it very much. He may not have served a mission, come to think of it, because he arrived there when he was about 19, and didn't, and he went straight through to graduation. But he was a good influence. He was a nice kid. So after a couple of years at MIT, I went to a summer job in Lincoln, Nebraska, as a surveyor's assistant for the Burlington Northern Railroad. You may ask why all this has to do anything with my conversion, but I mean, all of these were my religious experiences up to when I was baptized, and they all kind of contributed. While I was there with the railroad surveying that summer, my apartment was next door to, it was just a downstairs room in a house. I lived next door to the head of the Back to the Bible Society, which had a radio broadcast They're out of Lincoln, Nebraska. They were very nice people. Kind of took me under their wing, took me water skiing, invited me to evening meetings, and I was interested, and so I went and hung out with them a lot. They were kind of my friends there while I was in Nebraska. Very nice people, very sincere, um, and they kept asking me if I wanted to be baptized. I said no. They said, "Well, you need Jesus in your life. You're clearly uh, they said I needed to admit it that I was at the end of my rope spiritually and needed to be baptized. But I didn't really feel like I was at the end of my rope. I felt like I was just progressing along, doing what college kids do. And so I hung out with them and said thank you very much, but didn't join and I wasn't baptized at that point. And honestly, some of their doctrine didn't make sense to me, and it was the same problem I had had with the Presbyterian Church as well. From what I remembered, I didn't believe in the Trinity. I always thought God would be more personal than a spirit who filled the whole universe. It was small enough to reside in my heart and really was nothing like me as a man. And also, the purpose of life, they said that the purpose of life was to praise God, and when we died, we would go to heaven, and our purpose there as angels would be to praise God forever. And I thought, that doesn't really make sense to me. Why would God need to create beings to do that for him? So I was still searching for something a little bit more. My first assignment after college, I joined the Air Force. I had a low draft number, and so I was in ROTC and was commissioned in the Air Force after going to MIT for 4 years. So my first assignment, coincidentally, or maybe not, was Hill Air Force Base in Ogden, Utah. Now, obviously, I worked with a lot of Latter-day Saints at the engineering office there at Hill Air Force Base. I was a civil engineer. And immediately they asked if I was a member. I said no. They said, would you like to talk to the missionaries? I said no. But I was interested in working with the Boy Scouts because my family is all were career scouters. All my grandfather and my great uncles on the Gaskin side, they were all professional scouters. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and join up with a troop. I was an Eagle Scout. And of course, it was a Latter-day Saint troop up in Pleasant View and or Pleasant Grove, I forget which, North Ogden. And they, of course, asked if I was a member. I said no. They said, do you want to talk to the missionaries? I said no. But they were very nice, and I worked with the boys, and they were good boys mostly. And when I left to go to Saudi Arabia on temporary duty, they gave me a signed book of the Book of Mormon with their testimonies in it and their signatures, and I still have that. And I thought, well, that was very nice. So I went to Saudi Arabia. I was assigned to go to Saudi Arabia to build Air Force bases for the Saudis. The British had pulled out, and the Americans had taken over, helping the Saudis as an ally. At the time, the Saudis were very nice, very pro-American, very friendly, had a lot of Saudi friends. They wanted to be the 51st state, they said, because they had all gone to school in the U.S. and drove Camaros. And anyway, it's a very different place from now. Very nice people, the Muslims. Had a lot of friends over there. The other friends I had, though, were Latter-day Saints. When I got there, I started attending the Presbyterian Church, but I really just didn't feel comfortable there. And one day, pretty early on in Arabia, I was in Khamis Mushat, which is way up in the mountains, about 8,000 feet, and very different from the rest of Saudi Arabia, very mountainous, kind of like the high desert in the U.S. Anyway, there we had an American school for the American service members' kids, and all the teachers were hired by a guy out of Santaquin, and so most of them were LDS. And so, I mean, it was a pretty small school. But anyway, so we had some Latter-day Saint school teachers over there. So I was in Arabic class on base one day, and we were all telling where we were from. And I said I was from Utah. And all these people turned around and looked at me, and I thought, uh-oh, Mormons. I thought, great. So they came up after and said, oh, tell us, why are you in Utah? Are you a Latter-day Saint? And I said, nope, I'm not a Mormon. We called ourselves Mormons at the time. And they said, well, would you like to come to church? And I said, you know what? I think I would. Let me come see what you guys believe. I mean, I've known so many good Latter-day Saints. Let me come and see and find out what you actually believe. And so because of their friendliness, I mean, I'd known them off to the side. I didn't know they were Latter-day Saints at the time. Their friendliness and kindness and just seemed like really good people. I thought, okay, yeah, these are people that I really like. I think, let me go find out what they're about. So I went to church, and it was 6 adults and 4 kids. We met in somebody's living room. And as we met after the first week, they said, well, you know what? We need a Sunday school teacher. Would you be willing to teach Sunday school? And I said, well, I don't know anything about your church. How can I teach Sunday school? He said, well, we'll give you a manual and we'll give you the scriptures. You can study the lesson and then you teach it. Okay, why not? So I read the scriptures, parts I needed to, studied the lessons, and I thought, you know what? This is what I always believed. How come nobody told me about this before? I really liked that, I thought, well, I always thought there must be more. Christ must have done more than just teach the Jews. And I found out, yeah, other sheep have I who are not of this fold. I thought, check, I believe that. And prophecy is ongoing. The gospel's been restored because why would Christ have, prophecy and so on all the way up to him, and then it would just stop? So they told me about the apostasy, and I learned about that, and I thought, well, that makes sense. And Joseph Smith's story, telling me about how he was saying, well, all these churches can't be true because they all rely on the Bible and they all disagree. And I thought, yeah, here's my clock. Anyway, so I thought, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I always thought. Which church is true? Which one should I join? I was having that same search myself. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And the doctrine of the Godhead. I never thought that, I never believed in the Trinity. Like I said, I always believed that God and Jesus were separate beings. The dove came down and said, the voice said, this is my beloved son, hear him. And who is he talking to? So, or about. So anyway, I thought, well, this all makes sense. And the purpose of life is to become like God and Jesus. Oh, that makes sense. That makes a whole lot more sense than what I learned about being an angel. So anyway, so I studied some more and talked to them a lot, continued to attend church, and I thought, I really want to be baptized. This is where I've always belonged. And so we went down to a place along the coast of the Red Sea. We were in the mountains up above the Red Sea. So we drove down this rocky road, which is now a 4-lane highway, down to the Red Sea. And along this Red Sea down near Shukake, in a little town, north of a little town called Haridha, we found a little cove among the volcanic rocks there, and a little beach. Waited for all the fishermen to go away so they wouldn't see what we were doing, because at the time on the laws of Saudi Arabia, it was illegal to be Christian, and it was punishable by death to proselyte at the time, or even be Christian for that matter. I mean, they were nice people, but they were pretty harsh about how they felt about non-Muslims, at least on the books. They were very friendly otherwise. But we didn't want to take any chances, so we waited for all the fishing boats to go away, and then I was baptized. I got pictures if you ever want to see them along the coast there, and of the little group that we belonged to. So I was baptized on the 20th of April, 1978. And I've been a mostly active member ever since. When I went back to Utah after that, and I was shocked to find out that wards had like hundreds of people in them after being in this little group. I was very comfortable with the little group in Saudi Arabia, the 10 of us. We would meet, for church and then break for dinner, have a nice meal afterward, play games afterward, and just kind of hang out for the whole afternoon. And I thought, I like this church. This is a lot of fun. And then went to Utah, and there were hundreds of people, and I felt kind of lost. I started attending a young adults ward for a while, And that was pretty good. I attended that mostly until moving to Virginia about 6 months later in December of 1979 and or 78, excuse me, 1978, and moved to Newport News, Virginia, where I worked as a traffic engineering officer for the Air Force at an Army base. And there I met your mom, Anna Barger, and I met her in church, and she had just been baptized as well. Or actually, she was about to be baptized when I first met her. But yeah, she was baptized, and we met in the choir, and we were both singing in the choir. But that's a whole nother story. Anyway, that's my conversion story, and have been, like I said, a mostly active member in the church ever since, except for a brief period while living in Utah. But that's another story as well. And been a bishop a couple of times, a branch president once, and all kinds of other callings as well. And have enjoyed it. It's been a real growth experience. And we all have a lot of growing to do. And thankfully, between the church and my lovely wife, Hannah, I may grow up eventually. That's my baptismal story. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, let me know.